Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at @it'sJessino. Today we're going to be discussing a little bit of current Arsenal news. There is a lot of it coming out and none of it really has anything to do with the game today. Surprise, surprise. And we will be doing just like a really short preview, talk about how we kind of think the game is going to go. It's still an important game. It's a London derby, so we still need to put in some sort of performance, and I expect a strong lineup. But I have DJ Harry with me today. Hey Harry, how are you?
Well, good. How's it going?
Good, good. So first things first, I just kind of want to ask you because you are the president of the Granit Xhaka fan club. So hearing the news that he might be one of the players that wants out in the summer, how does that make you feel having to shut down your operation this summer?
I'm going to lose a lot of money. Listen, I think I mentioned it the other week. It's about time that we try to get a new energy in the squad, get some new vibes in the squad, and whether you like Granit Xhaka or not, you can't deny that during his time here, he's been part of an unsuccessful group. So maybe it's time to move him on if you can get a good fee for him. It'd be interesting to see if those thoughts on the 5 players wanting to leave are actually true. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, we have to take everything with a grain of salt. You know, they said that it was Louise, Willian, Xhaka, Bellerin, and Leno. I think Bellerin is somebody that we can all kind of anticipate leaving. I don't think that that's like too far-fetched. With the other ones, we just have to kind of see. But for me, seeing this list and every other list that's come out in the last couple of days of players that could potentially go, I'm kind of like, bye. Like, I'm not really attached to this group. So I think a big exodus in the summer is needed regardless. So for me, Louise, William, they can all kind of go. Leno, he's been good, but if we needed to move on from him, it wouldn't like kill me, So we'll definitely see, what actually comes to fruition. But that was kind of like the early news that some staff members have said that these are the players that want to leave, So I don't know. That's looking like a list that most people would have if they were like, hey, Arsenal outs, this is who I'd want out in the summer. So that's just me. But there's also some talk about Bruno Mazziotti. I think he's our like new physio, and how the medical staff that was already in place don't necessarily agree with some of his methods, and they're not really getting along, and his contract runs out at the end of the summer or at the end of the season, and he may leave. Do you think that there's kind of like an issue with this? There's kind of like a resistance in the turnover from the old guard of people that have worked at Arsenal and the new guard that Edu is trying to bring in, Edu and Arteta, because if you believe the reports about the goalkeeper coach, it's pretty much the same thing, that Inaki comes in and he's a new guy, and it's kind of there's a little bit of friction between Inaki and some of the people that have been there before.
Yeah, I think it seems like it's a bit like when Arteta came in at the start and Freddie was amongst one of the coaches, and he almost like was part of the coaching setup for a little bit out of respect, but then at the earliest opportunity to get rid of him, they got rid of Freddie. So I think maybe they just want to have everyone that's almost hired and fired by them, and they just want to get rid of any players who are from the old regime because it might just bring a negative energy, and focus on what's new. I know I've said it so many times, but I've got no problems with the acquisitions that we've made off the field in terms of the coaches, or maybe not the coaches, but the players. I think we've made some good moves, and I think the guys are trying to build something successful. But obviously, because we've seen such poor results, it's hard to get excited about it. But I think it just shows where we are as a club, right? We're probably trying to look at every aspect of our setup to see where we can improve, because maybe we're using those as excuses as to why certain players aren't performing. So I suppose in this day and age, with the game moving to that such elite level, every part of the game is analysed with such great detail. But part of me just makes me laugh a little bit, because back in the day, our most successful times, we had Bob Wilson as a goalkeeper coach, who was probably well into his 60s and whatnot. Pat Rice as an assistant manager, who I'm sure was a great guy, but I don't know if he was renowned to be, you know, an amazing coach. But it just seems that that's the way to move forward now, isn't it? It's just invest in every single area of the team, and hopefully it brings you some success.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it's probably hit or miss some of the new staff that has been brought in under Arteta and Edu. You look at Bruno, the physio. I can't really tell if it's him or the other parts of the medical staff that are dealing with the players and getting the results. But it looks like there's they've been able to get players back quicker than maybe before. And so that's a good thing. But I'm not sure who that actually is down to. With the goalkeeper coach, I think because what I know of him is he's the kind of goalkeeper coach that wants his keepers to be more like sweepers and to play with their feet and distribution. And that doesn't really maybe not combine well with Leno and how he views the goalkeeper position. So, and then you have some of like maybe the guy that we brought in from Brentford with he was the free kick coach or the dead ball coach, whatever you want to call it. What do you call it?
That hasn't really worked out well for us, has that?
That definitely hasn't worked.
Set piece, was it, or set piece coach or something?
But actually, I think it's us and Man City have the least amount of goals off of corners or like goals against on corners. So it's worked defensively, but offensively, it's an absolute joke. I don't know if we haven't gotten to that that part. So I do think that there may have to be.
It comes in stages. They go defense first, and then we'll improve attack. But we've got to be patient.
For real. I mean, it's definitely not like a full. It's not a full success, you know, yet. But there's always friction, I think, when you're trying to do things in a new way. I mean, I think Tim Lewis has maybe been pretty successful since he's been integrated into the executive staff. He's the one who kind of like caught up with the whole Raul thing. And, you know, I think that he's there to make sure that we're not being taken advantage of. So I think that's a good thing. So it's just interesting to see how it's been a rough transition, which I don't think we can be that. It's not surprising that there's been friction. There's been things that have been in place for years and years and years that Arteta and Edu are kind of blowing up. And with them being so inexperienced, I can kind of tell that maybe that's, you know, there's just a little bit of like, well, why do we have to do it this way? We've been doing it this way our entire lives. So we'll see how that kind of goes. But let's just kind of jump into the preview. So how are you feeling ahead of this London derby? I mean, it doesn't feel derby-ish. It doesn't feel like there's a lot to like really, there's not a lot of jeopardy on our end. Obviously, Chelsea has a lot going on. They have an FA Cup final this weekend, and they also have the Champions League final coming up. So this is kind of just like a game that they have to get through and make sure that they solidify top four, which I don't think is solidified as of yet. So what can Arsenal pull from this game to play for? You know, it just has to be pride at this point, right? Because I mean, that's all we're really playing for.
Yeah, exactly. And if playing with pride improves our performance, which gives us a positive result, is great. But then it also gives us that Europa Conference League, which, you know, I really don't want us to make. I know that sounds weird, but I just don't think it's gonna help us. It will just mean that we have to play more games. And, you know, we talk about eggs in baskets and whatnot. Unless we've got the squad to actually do it and compete, I just feel like it's just going to be a very annoying distraction. So what we've got to play for, I don't really know. Obviously pride, but I don't want us to climb the table. It sounds really strange, but I don't mind us being 10th or 9th this season, just totally out of European football. I think we'll benefit from it greatly. Just having 38 games that season, you know, apart from domestic cups, just one game a week for us to fully focus on the league. Look at what it's done for a team like West Ham. You know, it's worked wonders for them. I think it worked wonders for Chelsea when they finished 9th. I'm sure they won the league the season after, or maybe they finished top 4. So, yeah, I mean, obviously pride. We don't want to go there and lose. I'll take a draw now. I think a draw is probably a realistic option. I wouldn't mind if we lose, you know, narrowly, but we show a lot of pride and a lot of heart and go there with a good game plan. I'd be quite happy with that as well. I just think it's about going there and giving a good impression and not getting a hiding. I know you mentioned it yesterday that Chelsea aren't a team that score a lot of goals, which they're not, but
don't let this be the time. Don't let this be the time that they score 5 goals in a game. You know,
I've been disregarding Timo Werner all season, just saying he's an absolute flop. So no doubt he'll score about 84 goals tonight.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just for me about, but I've been begging for this entire time, and I was thinking like last night, when's the last time I seen Arsenal play really really hard and give it 110% and still lose? And I haven't really seen that. I've seen either we play well and we win, or we don't play well and we still kind of win, we skate by, or we just completely capitulate and lose. So I'm not sure if this team is capable of playing hard and just getting, maybe unlucky, or playing hard and it's a hard fought, whatever, and we lose. So I've been asking for a performance and we never really get it. If we lose, it's usually we're not even in the game at all, or we're sleepwalking. So I don't know if I'm asking for too much, asking for a performance and for them to play for pride, but that's pretty much all it is. It's still a London derby. And the more I think about it, I'm like, Arteta does need to end the season well, regardless to if he's going to keep the job or not. I think we all kind of know he's going to be here, but it's just the optics of just like capitulating towards the end of the season. I know we don't want to make the Conference League, but I think he still needs to put out a strong lineup and try to get something out of this. We'll see. Last time out, at Stamford Bridge, I think that was like the Gabby game, the Conte slip game. They fought hard in that game. I would take a performance like that. I would skip the red card, but I would take a performance like that.
Yeah, totally. I think we just want to go there and just see us play with some passion. I think, even if you look at the YouTube world of Arsenal fans, I think everyone's struggling to be really, really excited about any games at the moment. Anyone's struggling to be motivated. So I assume the players feel a similar way. So they need to kind of try to put that to the side and just go out there and give a brave performance. I assume Chelsea will rotate a little bit. Like you say, they've got their mind elsewhere. So maybe we can capitalise on that. But in the same respect, maybe we'll rotate a little bit as well. We don't even know what team we're going to play, do we? It can be anyone in the midfield. It could be anyone in the back. We've got about 4 right backs who are all just as good as each other. Who's going to play left back? We don't know. Centre half pairing could be Mari, Holding, Gabriel. So we'll have to see how we get on.
Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely see. You guys in the chat box, let us know how you're kind of feeling ahead of this game and what you would like to see in this game in terms of personnel, performance, whatever, because everybody's expectations of the game are a little bit different. I see some people want to win, nothing less. Hey there, whoever that is. So, but let's go ahead and you guys, Harry's about to do to go to work. So he's giving us a little bit of his time. So if you're wondering where he is and where that lovely sunshine is coming from, it's his job. So let's build our lineup really quick. I wonder if Granit Xhaka is still hurt, isn't he?
He's injured? I think he is. Yeah, he's still injured. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So which is
quite sad. So
sad. I know. Will you ever be able to see him in an Arsenal jersey again? Was that it?
It looks like the fairy tale is coming to an end. It looks like the fairy tale is almost over. But what a great 4 years it's been. I'm sure we can all agree it's just been a wonderful, magical 4 years of Granit Xhaka. Sad.
All right, it's gonna look funky for a second. Here we go. Can you see that, Harry?
Yep, all good.
Oh, all right, cool. All right, so let's start with the goalkeeper. For me, do you see any reason not to play Leno today? I mean, number 1 goalkeeper doesn't really need a rest, does he? What do you think?
No, I don't. But then it was weird how Ryan started against Fulham. Did he start against Fulham? Yeah, he did, right? Mm-hmm. Did Matt Ryan start? Yeah, so I find it strange how sometimes we've used him and now we've got nothing to play for, that he's continuing with Leno again, which is a little bit confusing for me. I mean, if it was me, I would pick Ryan, but I assume Arteta's going to go with Leno.
Yeah, I don't see any reason not to play him. And just if we do, after kind of like all the speculation about his future and all that kind of stuff, I think it would just add more fuel to the fire. And he's your number 1 goalkeeper. So you just kind of stick with that. So for right back, who's our strongest right back? I mean, I think we can completely count out Cedric at this point. It's just something about that guy that Arteta just doesn't rate
Yeah.
or something, or doesn't trust. So it's between Bellerin or Chambers. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I saw that Instagram post from Cedric the other night saying always giving 100%, which almost implies that he's trying to dispel any myths that he's unfit and he wants to prove that he's ready to play, but he's just not being picked. Yeah, I think we'll probably see Chambers. Yeah, I think Chambers right back. But to be honest with you, Jess, I would start Cedric. I really would,
Of
just to give him
course.
some minutes. I think he deserves to start. He's been out of the team since Prague. I'm not a massive fan of him. I think he's okay, but nothing to play for. Give him some minutes. Try to see if he can actually be reliable. Moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. And I see that the club is kind of leaning towards like Holding and Chambers, these players, these ultimate professionals. And I get that, but I also think that Cedric has been pretty professional since he's been here. I haven't really seen anything from him that's been unprofessional, and he hasn't made any more mistakes than anybody else that continuously plays in this team. So for me, it's just I don't really understand the Cedric thing. I mean, if all it takes is a mistake, to get. I mean, come on.
Yeah, do you
He's
know
not
what
the
it was?
first person to make a mistake in the last couple of minutes of the game. He's not the first one.
Yeah,
You
I
know.
agree. I just think it was probably the type of mistake that really
Mm.
annoyed Arteta because it wasn't a technical mistake. It was a bad choice
Mm-hmm.
mistake, and I think that almost sent us out of the Europa League. I know we went on to win the second leg comfortably, so I think maybe that's what's really annoyed Arteta. Which yeah, you're right. It does seem petulant when you look at the other mistakes players have made, but Arteta does have a reputation, doesn't he, for picking and choosing favourites, unfortunately, and it seems that Cedric isn't one of his at the moment. But yeah, Chambers right back makes sense as well.
Yep. And I don't think Louise is fit. Um, I think Holding will play still,
Yeah,
so
yeah, I agree. It's interesting about that Holding and Chambers, thing that you mentioned about them not building around, but keeping those sort of players, which I kind of get. I think it's important to have those English players in there that know the club, that love the club. But I do think without, David Luiz, we are so disadvantaged. I hope we see him, for at least one more game towards the end of the season. But yeah, I think Holding will start for sure.
yeah, and with rumors of David Luiz leaving, I think that leaves so much. It would be really interesting in the summer seeing what they do because Saliba's supposed to come back, and for me, I just cannot see from what I've seen from Arteta, he's very adverse to having too many young players in the team at one time, and I think he already doesn't really trust Gabriel. I think his kind of like his wanting to always kind of put Marie in there, and he's put Marie in there in some really important games, leads me to believe that maybe he's not that sold on Gabriel for one reason or another. So for me, I just cannot see a center back pairing of Gabriel and Saliba to start the season. So, but I also don't think Holding is good enough. Like, I think we can all agree that he's a good squad player, but he's definitely not good enough to start for Arsenal on a regular basis. So we may be in for a right-sided center back if Louise doesn't stay. Would you prefer us to, spend additional resources on another right-sided center back, or do you think, we should do whatever is necessary to continue with Louise for another like year or so?
Yeah, listen, I would continue with Louise for another year. I know he divides opinion. If we can try to forget about this up and down season and just look at him individually, I think he's been decent enough for us this season. We've missed him when he hasn't played. But then we don't need Louise, Holding and Saliba, and I think it's important that we get Saliba playing and find out, if he's going to be the centre back for the future. I think having Saliba and Louise makes more sense, to be honest, in terms of balance and them both being ball playing centre halves. I think that makes more sense. But with Louise, we don't know the contract situation, and we also don't know about his injuries. He's had a few injuries recently, and maybe that is a sign of his career coming to an end. So we have to wait and see.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would anticipate seeing Gabriel. I mean, he needs these games. There's nothing else. There's no reason to play Marie anymore for me. Like, it's not if he plays Marie, that just leaves me with so many questions about why we got Gabrielle. He needs to play, and I understand that Holding and Gabrielle doesn't work, but I'm almost like we have to force the Gabrielle issue at this point. He needs to play games, so personally, I would like to see Gabrielle, regardless of if, they work together, because I just can't understand why we would spend the money on Gabrielle and he would be out and Marie would be playing. Marie's not that much better than Gabrielle to me, and he's not better than him at all, to be honest.
Yeah, totally agree. And it's a little bit weird how sometimes I think we feel that certain players play better with players or they complement each other. I think Gabriel's got all of the attributes to complement a Rob Holding type centre half. Gabriel's better on the ball than Rob Holding. He's faster, he's more aggressive. So I think that's a partnership that could work well. We maybe just haven't seen it. But you're right, we need to give Gabriel minutes, because essentially he's meant to be our centre back for the next 6, 7, 8 seasons, right? That's why we paid that money on him. So we just got to give him minutes and let him find his form.
Exactly. I feel like Arteta kind of like reverts back to these more senior players or whatever, because he feels like they're safer bets. But at some point, we need to start to kind of move on. And Marie, I like him, but Gabriel is the guy. So Saka played left back against West Brom, and I'm not sure if that was an eye to this game, because I'm not. I know Tierney is in training, but I'm not sure if he's 100%. Do you have any idea of Tierney's fitness and whether you think that maybe Saka will play at left back if Tierney's not fit?
Oh, if I was picking the team, I would play Saka left back, just simply to protect Tierney. I just don't think we need to risk him. And I just think it's too risky. I know Saka's got the Euros as well. Scotland have made the Euros, right? Have they?
Yeah,
they have.
Yeah.
So So you assume Tierney's going to play a lot more than Saka in the Euros. Oh, I don't know. It's a tough one. I would go with Saka there on the left hand side. Just
Why open yourself up? Why open yourself up for the criticism of playing Saka there? Like, the whole narrative around the West Brom game was, why didn't you play Saka there at left back? And for me, I don't understand why he would do it if it wasn't an eye to this game. There's no point in putting Saka there against West Brom when you could just do, it's West Brom. So the only thing I can think of is that maybe they feel like Tierney is not 100% fit, and maybe Saka plays here. I think he plays left back today. I really do. For some reason, I just have a feeling, because Tierney, he doesn't look all the way fit, and like you said, there's absolutely no reason to risk him at this point.
That boy Saka has got some minutes under his belt this season, hasn't he? God, he's played so much, that kid, so much.
I mean, he's definitely on, he's on his way to Bellerin type minutes at a young age, so we have to be aware of that. We definitely don't want to burn him out at such a young age. Bellerin looks like a shell of himself at 25, and he's in the peak of his career. The last thing we need is for Saka to break down at 24, 25, so that's something that they need to take into consideration. But I think, honestly, just play El Neni here. Just play him in the midfield. No more Ceballos. I'm done. I'm so done with the Ceballos thing, and I think you play Thomas here. And Thomas and El Neni has worked in the past. The only time that it looked kind of shaky was against Aston Villa, but I think the entire team was horrendous in that game. So I think this is just a safer bet than having Ceballos out there. We have to remember that under Tuchel, Chelsea is a pressing monster, and they press you into situations where you, even if you're not being pressed hard, you feel like you're under pressure. I've seen players that are very technically gifted and good on the ball kick the ball out of bounds because of the way that they press. So I think having Ceballos out there is almost like a recipe for disaster. I know El Neni isn't necessarily the most, exotic choice or the most interesting choice, but I think if we task him to find 5 to 10 yard passes and be safe, he will do that for us.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's a safer pairing. It's got a little bit more legs and energy than it has with Ceballos. I'm not sure if Ceballos has fitness issues, but it seems that after the 50th, 60th minute, he just is running on empty, or I don't know. It just seems that he just doesn't have the energy to maintain that athleticism for 90 minutes. So yeah, I would go with El Neni and Partey. It's a safe bet. With El Neni, we just need to see if he can just play with Partey consistently, if he can deliver a decent performance against decent opposition, because he's another one that you can potentially get rid of. But maybe he's, good to have around the squad as well. So it'd be good to see if he can give a decent 90 minutes against a top side, because he does it in the Europa League and whatnot. But, this is a top side. Let's see if he can actually impose his game.
Look, when I look at Elneny, he's somebody that we definitely need to move on from. But at what time, I don't really know, because he doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
He works hard. He does as much as he possibly can. And I don't think he necessarily hurts us. I just don't think he improves us, if that makes sense. So if you have a choice between selling Elneny, because we need midfielders. If you have a choice between selling Elneny for 8 million or whatever that you get for him, or Granit Xhaka for maybe 25, I think I'd choose Granit, just because he's a more sellable asset. And Elneny he doesn't really hurt us that much. Not like Xhaka really hurts us, but he's just not really that high on my priority list in terms of outs. But in the cam position, I feel like at this point, we need to see if Odegaard can do it. He's faded against some of the bigger teams this season. I remember when we played against Man City, he was pretty much non-existent. And so I think this would be a good test for him. We have to put him in a situation under pressure to see if he can hang. So are you okay with putting Odegaard in the cam?
Yeah, totally. I think he's been a victim sometimes of poor approach or poor attitude from the overall team. When you look at that Man City game, we conceded so early on, and straight away you give them the confidence to play around, and then he turns into a, instead of a number 10, he just turns into someone who's just trying to close down the ball and win it back. So I think, I agree, he has faded off, and in those big games he hasn't really come up with the goods, and we need to see if he's potentially worth that investment. After the West Ham game, we were all, raving about him, and he was seen as like the next Ozil. And since then, nothing's really happened, which is quite sad. So, hopefully he can have a big game tonight.
I agree. So I think I would play Pepe here. I hope Arteta plays Pepe at right wing. I think he deserves it. He's been one of our better players. That's not to really say that that's not that big of a compliment, considering that everybody's so bad, but he's dangerous, and I think he's worked hard this season, and he's another one that we kind of need to maybe make a decision on. I'm not sure. I would keep him unless some sort of offer of 40 million came in or something. But are you okay with putting him at the right mid position, or do you think that Arteta will go with somebody like Willian?
Well, I don't want to be a spoiler alert for the left midfield position, but I think it will be Pepe and Willian either side. So I think Pepe will be right mid, Willian will be left mid today. But I agree with Pepe. He's actually improved quite a lot over the past couple of weeks, and I was certainly someone kind of pushing for some sort of loan move or get some confidence up from him, or even take a big transfer fee. But I think he's improved a lot recently. So fair play to him. He's changed his attitude and his application massively. So Pepe on the right, and unfortunately or fortunately, depends which way you look at it, it's going to be the free kick expert Willian on the left hand side.
He's going to drop out if he's. I just can't see him performing against Chelsea. I can't see it. Him and David Luiz were absent for the last one because they were sick from COVID, or they had been in contact with somebody that had COVID. But I just can't see him putting in any sort of performance. And I see some sort of Eden Hazard-esque, behavior from him after the game, celebrating Chelsea players and all that. He's such an agent. It just is ridiculous. But I almost feel like I would prefer to see Martin. I think all of us would prefer to see Martinelli on the left-hand side, because him and Saka have such a good relationship. And that's pretty much what we were doing last season, with the two of them kind of overlapping each other and creating overloads on the left-hand side. So for me, I would prefer to see Martinelli, but I think Arteta will go safe as usual and put Willian on the left. That only leaves the striker position. It could be Aubameyang or Lacazette. Do you have a temperature on where you think Arteta will land on this one?
Oh, I think he'll go Lacazette, just because of Chelsea's defensive profile. They're quite athletic, they're quite fast. Rudiger's quite pacey, so I don't think Aubameyang will necessarily play well. I would go with Martinelli, to be honest, because I just think it's an area that we know what Lacazette does, we know what Aubameyang does or doesn't do this season. I think just give the minutes to Martinelli. I think if anything, the rawness and his desire, his closing down, his relentlessness, I think that might just stand us in a better chance than playing into Lacazette's feet and playing off him, or playing balls over the top to Aubameyang. I just think maybe just someone hustling from the front will be better. That's what I would do. I think you have to get the balance of like rotating, but giving players a chance, who need to prove themselves, who deserve a chance to prove themselves, and also who are going to be part of your future. We know Martinelli can be good, but we're still yet to see it consistently. So I would just play him for these past 3 games, every game starting up front.
I would too, but you've seen Arteta took him out.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. He took him out and at the 70th minute or something, and gave those last 20 minutes to Lacazette. And I'm like, why does Lacazette need these minutes? Martinelli should start the next 3 games, but I fear that he won't, because especially for this game, because Arteta will be trying to make some sort of point, trying to make sure that we look competitive against a team like Tuchel's Chelsea. So for me, I agree. I think it'll be Lacazette, because we will need a fighter up there. I think Aubameyang will get lost in between the 2 center backs, or the 3 center backs. They play with 3. So that's what I would. That is not a good team. And I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it like that. It's not a good team. So
imagine how Arteta feels. Do you reckon he says the same thing in his team talk? He goes, "This is not a good team.
This is not a good team." Wow. So we went with Leno, Chambers, Holding, Gabriel, Bukayo Saka at left back, Thomas Partey and El Neni, Odegaard in the midfield, and Pepe, Willian, and Lacazette up front. That, yeah, not great. Not great at all. So, feeling confident?
I don't know. You don't know with this team, do you? Sometimes they turn it up, they turn it on. Part of me thinks it's going to be not an heroic night, but we're going to show some sort of character and desire that we haven't shown before. I'm going to go for a score draw. I think I've changed my score about 84 times, but I'm going to go for a score draw. I think it's going to be 1-1.
So you're going to go with 1-1. I'm going to go with 2-0 Chelsea. I just still think they're going to be better than us, and they're going to do their thing. 2 goals, and we won't be able to score against them. But I'm going to go ahead and let you go so that you can do your thing. So everybody, Harry's going to get out of here. Everybody tell him goodbye. Talk about his glasses and his sunshine and all those good things.
The sun is so bright. It keeps going in and out. Sometimes I can see you, sometimes I can't. So I'm just like, yeah, sorry about the poor quality tonight. It's not always like this. All right. Have a good evening.
No
Enjoy
problem.
The game.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay.
All right, you guys. How you guys feeling about the game? Score predictions. Get your score predictions in the chat box right now. You guys, that team, it wasn't strong. I looked at it and I was like, I mean, you have to think about what Arteta thinks about that. His options are not great. Actually, we didn't talk about that. Actually, we could put Emile Smith-Rowe is injured, isn't he? Yeah. So no Emile Smith-Rowe. So yeah, it doesn't sound great. It doesn't sound great. I mean, if you look at the way Chelsea's been playing, they don't score a lot of goals. I wouldn't be surprised if they scored a lot against us. Because of the state in which we're in and the form in which they're in. They're confident. They feel good about themselves. We are not confident. We don't feel good about ourselves. And I cannot see us scoring against this Chelsea side. I mean, better teams have struggled to score against them. So unless they have a brain fart or they don't rate us and they come out there and, play like they're playing kids or something like that, I don't see it, Again, just asking for a performance, is that too much to ask? But yeah, we'll definitely see. You guys want to do Q&A for a couple minutes as well? We can talk about, the news for today, the game, whatever. Just go ahead and drop some of your questions in the chat box, and I will definitely get to those. Matt says, if they get an early goal, I can see this team completely crumbling. I can too as well. I just don't think we have enough about us at the moment. Bowie the Cat says 4-2 Chelsea. Matt G says 2-0 loss. Sad, but I can't see us getting anything from this game, even against a weakened Chelsea team. James Mason says 3-1 loss, which I take to avoid 8th. Zitch says 3-0 Chelsea in the first half. Wow. AK Gunner says 2-0 Chelsea win. That's what I think as well. Abdallah says 2-0 Chelsea. We need to rectify the BS that happened in December. Okena says 2-0 Chelsea. Alzan says, my heart says 2-1 to the Arsenal, but my head says 1-1. I would take that. You guys are funny. So let's see. Alzan says, Jess, why is Martinelli not in the starting 11? Gabriel Martinelli in the left wing over Willian. Of course, like I would prefer Martinelli on the left. I just feel like Arteta is very risk adverse and he tends to rest on the or rely on the more senior players even when they let them down and let him down. So for me, I can't see Martinelli in the starting lineup, not because I don't want to see him, but just because I just can't. Arteta just he's just not that guy. If Saka plays at left back, then I would like to see Martinelli on the left with him because they have such a good chemistry. And what we've seen over the season is that when we find something that works, we tend to rip it apart, sometimes unnecessarily. Sometimes it's enforced by injury, but a lot of times it's just because he wants to tinker, or now that it works, I want to try to add one of my more senior players in there to see if it will work better. And it doesn't. Martinelli and Saka works because Martinelli and Saka have chemistry. They know how to work together. They're young, they're ambitious, they're fearless. And you can't, when Martinelli and Saka play well together, can't just plop a Willian in there and think you're going to get the same result. He is just not it. Is not it. Deb says 1-0 Chelsea win. Haji says Chelsea 4, Arsenal 1. Bowie the cat asks, would you be tempted to play 2 up front? With Chelsea probably playing a back 3? Potentially. You could play, I don't think he'd ever play like a true 2. I think the only time that we've ever really seen that was in the Europa League in the very first, like the group stages with like Nketiah and Lacazette. I don't really see that for this game. If he does play 2 strikers, it'll be Aubameyang off of the left and Lacazette through the middle. But I don't think having 2 strikers will make us more potent because then it takes away our creation. We are just in that position where we don't create from enough. We don't have enough creator positions. And when you add an additional striker, it makes it worse. So yeah. Let's see. Nana G K says, won't be surprised if Arsenal nick a win. We weren't expecting a win in December either, but that was when Frank Lampard was there and he had no idea what he was doing. I just don't think this Chelsea team is going to capitulate, or they just look so strong. And I know every strong team has a bogey game every once in a while, but I can't see us being that. I think they'll be so I just don't think we're the team to do it. I just can't see it. AK says, why do you think Arteta against giving a chance to Aziz, Balogun, and Lopez? We are mid-table. I think this is a great opportunity to give those young guns experience and see what they're capable of. I don't necessarily, in regards to these specific players, I think because some of them have been really needed because our under 23 team was under a lot of pressure. They were going to be relegated from Premier League 2. I think that's kind of where that comes from, is that they've played games for the under 23, so they won't bring them up. Aziz and Balogun are the only 2 that I know anything about. Lopez, I've heard of him, but I'm not really sure if he's ready. But Aziz and Balogun, I think Aziz even played like for the under 18s. They're playing games, and Arteta just, I think if there's I don't want to call it an excuse, but unless every factor just kind of leads to them being in the team, like we have injuries, it's a game that doesn't have a lot on it, and they didn't play midweek or didn't play for the under 23s or whatever, then he'll do it. But if any of those factors are not true, then he just won't add them in. It'll always be Ceballos or El Neni or, other players in. He'll even add an additional goalkeeper if he has to. Like, I just don't think he's ready to add these players in, and I'm not really sure if that's going to change. I really think Arteta wants better, more experienced players. I really don't see him as a youth coach or somebody that really can do well with youth. I think Saka is an outlier because he's a very talented player. But I think if Arteta had his way, he would want older, more experienced players of quality, and he doesn't have those at Arsenal, and he's struggling. Aslan says, I just feel the partnership of Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli is far more solid option on the left side that will offer more attacking threat. I agree with you 110%. I just don't see him doing it. I think Willian will play. As bad as it sounds. Let's see. Tony asked, I understand not playing the young players against Chelsea, but do you expect going full youngster for Palace and Brighton? No, I don't. I think Arteta will play relatively strong sides for the rest of the season. Against West Brom, we didn't see like a youngster team. That's pretty much the game that you would do it in because they're the worst team out of all the teams that we played since we bombed out of the Europa League. So I think his idea of a lesser squad or rotating is playing Ceballos and playing Marie or Gabrielle, because Gabrielle has become somehow a rotational player, so I just don't think we're going to see the young players like we want to. He's not going to go full youngster. He will just rotate with the players that are already in the first team. That's what I anticipate. Eddie asks, will Chelsea have an eye on the FA Cup final this weekend? Tuchel would want that trophy, so may rest all the best players, hopefully. To be honest, even if he rests some of his best players, they have like a whole nother team right behind them. They have great depth. They're probably, besides Man City, they have the most depth. So even if they don't play Chilwell and James, they'll play Azpilicueta and Alonso, two players that are still better than what we have. So even if they rest some of their better players, I just don't see us being able to. It's not so much about can we get a result? Of course we can, but will we have the desire to? I'm not sure. And that's half the game, is the energy and the want to get something out of this game. And from what we're reading in kind of like in the rumors and what's coming out from the club is that there is a consensus in that club that a lot of the players that we would be relying on are players that might be leaving. So why would they care? It's not like there's fans that they have to play in front of, and there's no fans to even keep them accountable. They can just shut off their phone at the end of the game and just ride out the next couple of games and, get a move in the summer. I just don't see, without playing Emile Smith-Rowe and Saka and Gabriel Martinelli, I don't see the performance coming because a lot of these players just aren't playing for anything and they're on the beach. And that's just what I think. The ex-gunner 81 says, Arsenal have led us down misleading and disastrous roads. We're not competing with the best. No, we're not. Let's see. O'Kenna says, Gabriel and Holding don't play well together. I think that is part of the reason Gabriel hasn't played much when David Luiz. I get that. I understand that, but and that can be an excuse for this season and this season only. It needs to be like a priority needs to be for us to find Gabriel a suitable partner. And if that's not Holding, then Holding doesn't play. I just feel like I've seen too much of Holding and not enough of Gabriel, and he's the guy. So for me, that's an okay excuse for now. You can kind of get away with it. But this summer, if it's not Saliba and it's not David Luiz, then you need to bring somebody in because it won't be acceptable next season to play Holding and Marie because Gabriel and Holding don't get along or they don't work. So it's frustrating now, but I can understand the reasonings why. But it won't be a good enough excuse for me next season. It just won't. Thomas needs a suitable partner. Gabrielle needs a suitable partner. Like these guys have had inconsistent seasons. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's been a lot of chopping and changing. They don't know who they're playing with week in, week out. They haven't had an opportunity to build chemistry with anybody. And once they do, it just changes again. So to me, in order to protect the resources that you've bought, you need to surround them with the type of players that are going to get the most out of them. And up to this point, we haven't done that. All right, you guys, that's it for the preview. I think we did good. I'm hoping that we get a performance. I'm hoping that I mean, of course, I always hope that we win, but at the bare minimum, I just want to see the guys play hard. I hope that we see a decent lineup. I would love to see Martinelli. I would love to see Bukayo Saka. I hope that we see some of our young players out there doing what they do best. And I will see you guys after the game for an instant reaction call-in. It'll be immediately following the game. So come and have your say. Hopefully it's not too bad. So I will talk to you guys on the next one, and I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.